Hey, babe, guess where I'm taking you today?
I don't know. This is a tough one because I'm outside already.
I'm going to take you to a place that once was called the most lawless town in America.
You're taking me there?
Yeah, I'm also going to take you to a place that has a haunted lake.
How does a lake get haunted?
I don't know, but we're going to find out.
Okay, sounds good.
Where are we taking everybody?
We're going to go to Johnson County, Wyoming.
Put your seatbelts on.
Because here we go.
Did you know that 46 million Americans plan to take an RV trip in the next 12 months? 90% of recreational vehicle owners take 3 or more mini vacations every year. Welcome to the RV Destinations Podcast. If it's RV travel, we're talking about it. From campgrounds to museums to national and state parks, kayaking and hiking opportunities. One of the most fun and pleasurable things you can do is just hit the road. So be ready to be inspired. Welcome in to the RV Destinations Podcast. Now your host, President Randy Beheimer and Editor-in-Chief, Caly Beheimer.
Hello, everybody. We're here in the sunny state of Wyoming. We're in Buffalo, Wyoming right now.
We are in Buffalo. It's ironic that you said sunny because we started the podcast and the sun went behind the clouds, which is a massive blessing right now.
Yes, we've been blessed because we've been fighting the sun all morning setting up for this podcast. But anyway, let's not talk about the negative stuff today.
No.
We've got some guests. Well, first of all, where are we? Let's tell everybody where we're at.
Currently, we're in Buffalo, Wyoming.
Right. Where's Buffalo, Wyoming?
In Johnson County.
I'm asking the most
Wyoming.
geographically
It's in the United States. I mean, Buffalo, Wyoming. How more specific am I going to get?
Well, why don't you introduce our guests and we can define exactly where we're at.
Okay, I'm still confused by your question, but we'll roll with it. So with us today, we have Toby Carrig, who is, I have to look at my notes here because you gave me like a laundry list title, the Marketing Director for Johnson County Tourism Association. Woo! Okay. And we also have with us Anita Peoples, who is the owner of this gorgeous KOA journey that we're staying at here in Buffalo. Hi, Anita.
Hi, it's nice to meet you, Jay.
I'm so glad you guys are here with us.
All right, so maybe let's settle the question. I
know. What are you trying to say here? I said Buffalo, Wyoming.
I know that,
do you need
but I'm saying
longitude?
geographically we're in north, would you say it's central Wyoming? Is that a fair statement?
North central is it, yes.
Okay, I was going to say that, but I didn't want to I didn't want to be wrong. So we're north central Wyoming. So we're about, 70 miles from the Montana border on 90?
Not even that far, probably about 50, 60 miles from the Montana border. But we're right along I-90 and Interstate 25, both go through Buffalo, along with Highway 16, which is a good route to Yellowstone from those interstates.
Okay, so if you're like us, the listeners out there and the viewers on YouTube and listeners on the audio podcast, we'd never heard of Buffalo before.
No.
Us talking to you and chatting, 3 months ago now? Mm-hmm. And so we looked into it and we came out here to visit and we've been blown away, just simply blown away of all the stuff to do in Buffalo.
Yeah, so this was a challenge. So last night, because Randy and I are about halfway through our adventures here in Johnson County and Buffalo and Kaycee. And last night, I'm coming up with this top 10 list, and I'm like, there's still so much more. I don't have enough to squeeze it all in the 10. So yeah, I mean, and we're still not done. I'm excited because we're, after the podcast today, we're going to do some more fun things. So
when you and I talked, we spoke a couple times off air, and it almost seems like Highway 16, first of all, is the safest for RVers to get to Yellowstone. And so you get a lot of Yellowstone traffic in the area. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. It's got very few switchbacks, makes it a very easy drive from here to Yellowstone, and then also connects over to the Black Hills and Mount Rushmore and areas over there as well.
Right, compared to Route 14 and 14A, which are gorgeous drives, but you don't want to take your RV down
no-goers for RVers.
Well, I mean, we took our RV down 14.
We did.
And we were smoking the brakes the whole way down.
Oh, that was that one part. Okay.
Yeah, we were in a bumper pool.
Yeah, not this.
We had to pull over a couple times and let the air brakes, not air brakes,
no,
the brakes cool
those were
down.
Just a little pressure brakes.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you didn't know that, if you're listening to the show, do not take 14 or 14A with your motorhome. Definitely go 16, which is going to put you right through Buffalo.
Yeah, and Buffalo is a place that you really want to stop and spend a few days here. So when you're planning a trip out west and you're like, yes, Yellowstone, yeah, go see Yellowstone, but this is a wonderful, wonderful place to stop. You could easily spend, I mean, we're going to be here a total of 9 days, and we're not going to have enough time to do everything here. So that just gives you an indication of how much there is to do and see in this area. So spend the time and come here.
That's right. So we're going to give you evidence. We're in a court of law here. We're going to give you evidence why, when you're going to the Black Hills, if you're heading east, or if you're going to Yellowstone heading west, why you need to make this part of your trip.
Yes.
We're going to spend 4 or 5 days here. You don't necessarily have to spend 9, but 4 or 5 days would be plenty to see all there is to do, especially if you're into outdoors. So we're going to present the facts here, and then you tell us. You write in and tell us. You can send us an email if you're listening to the audio at publishers@rvdestinationsmagazine.com, or put something down in the notes section. Tell us why you think this will be a great place to come. So anyway, as we traditionally do, we're going to start off with some fun facts, and I'm hoping that, I know we haven't let Anita or Toby talk a lot yet, but I'm hoping you guys can help fill in some of the...
Yeah, because the whole lake thing, we are going to have a conversation about that.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's 2 stories coming out of that. Well, let's just start there. Let's talk about...
So how do you haunt a lake?
There's a Lake de Smet. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Lake de Smet, named for Father de Smet, who I believe passed through the area in 1841, and they named the lake after him.
Okay. And there's kind of 2 stories there, right, that make it haunted. Are you familiar enough with the story? You can kind of give us the lowdown?
Yeah, so the lake is about 6 or 7 miles northeast of Buffalo, right along I-90, very easy to access. One of the stories is that there were sea monsters sighted in the lake.
Like Loch Ness type sea monsters?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would make me want to come to Buffalo.
Right. Nessie, number 2.
Yep, by both passersby and some of the ranchers even reported seeing some weird phenomena with these monsters that would be sailing along the lake. And
oh my gosh, that's insane. Okay, so all the more reason to come to Buffalo. Okay, and there's a second story?
The second story was the Indian story, right? Are you familiar with that story?
Yes, to do with Native Americans, and supposedly it had to do with young lovers who were to meet on the beach of Lake de Smet. And there was a kind of a ghost in the mist of a woman who drew one of the young man towards the water, and they're not sure what happened, but the young woman either tried to stop him or was annoyed by the presence of the ghost, and ended up in a physical confrontation where she died, and the punishment was that they tied the young man to a rock, I believe, and left him at the beach there, so that eventually they would both pass away, and due to that spirit that was at the lake. That's the story I've heard.
You know what? And rightly so, because if you're ignoring me for some ghostly apparition, yes.
This is why I left my last wife. Same exact reason. I had this premonition of Caly.
I would tie you to a rock too and leave you on a beach.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. So, but outside of that, I love a good haunting story. Every time we go to a new city, I always try to find ghost stories because I just love it. Not that I technically believe in it, but I just love enjoying the story. So that's fun. So, but the lake itself, it's a big lake for boaters and I assume swimmers and kayakers. And tell us a little bit more about the lake.
Yeah, very popular recreation area the county manages at the south end of the lake. And there's another boat access up by the monument for Father de Smet. So there's a lot of boating, fishing, paddleboarding, canoeing, kayaking. There's a beach for swimming on there as well. So very popular place on weekends and throughout the summer here in Buffalo.
Gotcha. Before we get too far in it, I want to kind of discuss Buffalo in relation to Johnson County.
Yeah.
Because first of all, we're from Kentucky. Kentucky has the 3rd largest amount of counties in the state. Fourth largest with like 130 different counties. Here in Wyoming, we looked it up. You have like 16.
23.
23. I would say we have,
Okay, 23.
It's okay, honey.
Okay, we were looking at different states. I must have got one confused. But 23 versus 130. So these are big counties, and Johnson County is huge.
Yes. It's, 45 miles south to Kaycee, and you're still not at the county line there. So, it's probably 50, 60 mile long county and almost as wide as well.
Right.
There's not a lot of population. You got the city of Buffalo is 4,500 people or so. Kaycee's a city of about 260 people. So you got a lot of wide open spaces.
Yeah.
You got the Bighorn Mountains forms the western edge of the county line, and then the plains to the east. So it's the interstate kind of travels. I-25 goes north, south, right along that line where the plains are on one side, the Bighorn Mountains are on the other side.
Right. So what we're kind of suggesting to our listeners here is staying in Buffalo and then venturing out into all parts of Johnson County, not just Buffalo. I mean, there's a lot of cool things in Buffalo to do, and we'll talk about those, but getting out and about. So let's talk a little bit about, this is a big, not only outlaws, but Indians. So let's start with the Indians first, because there's been a lot of battles in the area. And I'm a history buff, so I love this stuff. So right north of us, we have a fort, or used to be a fort. You want to tell us a little bit about that Fort Phil Kearny?
Sure. Fort Phil Kearny was built in 1866, the summer of that year, as kind of a position to protect the Bozeman Trail, so that the travelers along it could not worry about Native Americans attacking their wagon trains. So there were 3 forts along the route. The Fort Phil Kearny was the main one, and it was the biggest at 17 acres. So it was the largest stockaded fort in the West when it was built. It's a state historic site now, so you can walk around the fort and kind of see the lay of the land and get an idea of how remote it was and how cold and windy and difficult it would have been for the soldiers who were stationed there. And then, of course, you had the Native Americans in the area that were trying to push back against their presence and did little skirmishes and did some things to pick off their livestock. And then eventually they had the Fetterman Massacre, which resulted in 79 dead soldiers and 2 civilians for the Native American ambush that took out that contingent. So that's a big part of the history of the fort up there. In 1868, the military kind of said, all right, we give up. We don't want to try to man this trail anymore, and abandon the forts. And the Native Americans, the Cheyenne, burned that fort down. So it does not exist in terms of a standing fort anymore, but you can still walk the grounds that are up there as a state historic site and get the history and the story of it.
And they've got a museum there with a gift shop and everything there. So we thought it was pretty cool. And they're building a new one, and the new one looks like it's going to be absolutely beautiful from what we saw. So but yeah, this to give you a history lesson for those that aren't up on your Indian history. So they found gold in Montana. And Mr. Bozeman came out, and this was an old Indian trail, is my understanding, but he found it and claimed it, hey, I found this trail, even though the Indians have been using it for years. But it basically took them from essentially Buffalo up into Montana. Right. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So it kind of starts here, right?
Fort Laramie down that area.
It starts a little bit south here. Okay. Yeah. But it takes them up to the gold. And so all the gold... what would you call them? Gold miners, gold hopeful people?
Gold
prospectors.
There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. My brain will start working eventually. So they were all heading up there for the gold, and they were getting attacked constantly, and so that created the fort. And then the Fetterman's battle is just, it's an amazing history story. It's sad that it happened, but hey, there's sad things on both sides.
Yeah.
But it's really, really interesting to look that up if you're interested in any kind of Indian history. So now we also had the wagon box. They call that a skirmish, not really a battle, and that was a real interesting thing. I hadn't heard of that until we went up and visited. But in addition to that, we also, if we travel south down towards Outlaw Canyon, we had the Dull Knife kind of massacre. Are you familiar with that? Can you tell the listeners about that?
A little bit. That was more later in the 1870s and came after the Battle of Little Bighorn. And so at this point, the military, the U.S. military, was being a little more aggressive about trying to quell what the Native Americans were attacking. So for the Dull Knife fight, when it was actually up in the southern part of the Bighorns, and the military went up and kind of raided one of the villages up there, and it was a very detrimental for the Indians that were there in terms of being able to continue to fight back against the military. So it's kind of a one big last blow before kind of the reservation era for Native Americans.
Yeah, so they were in an area called Red Fork Valley, and I looked at pictures. We didn't get out there to visit it because it's on private land, but they attacked them I think in February, right in the middle of winter. It may not have been in February, but I think I remember reading February. And so the Indians knew they were near, but they weren't expecting, because in the past that never happened with the U.S. military. So they attacked them. They marched all night. Got right before where they were there set up, and that morning they attacked them, and they basically they were caught off guard essentially, and basically massacred. I think they refer to it as a massacre, but let's go on to something a little bit more fun rather than
all the sad and gloomy stuff.
Right. So we already talked about Route 16, but let's talk about there's a famous Netflix series and an author that kind of lives in the in Johnson County. And yes, I'm
the
sporting,
random arm coming into your video.
I'm sporting the shirt. You want to tell us a little bit about Longmire and the author?
Sure. Craig Johnson is the author of the Longmire book series that started about 20 years ago. There are about 20 novels in that series at the moment. He's still writing. He's still producing books and doing book tours and makes appearances around the area. And he also helps coordinate the Longmire Days celebration that we have each summer here. So usually in July when some of the actors can get through with their schedule to make appearance here in Buffalo, they come to town, hang out for a few days, do autograph sessions, do presentations, and they'll do a 5K run. They do a horseback ride, a trap shooting contest, all these different types of events during that 4-day festival to celebrate Longmire Days. So, and we have the shop downtown, the Bucking Buffalo Supply Company, that sells Longmire merchandise as well.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's really cool.
That's all. And all his books are fiction. They're loosely based on this area, right?
He calls the city Durant, and he calls it Absaroka County, but it's all very much Buffalo, and he uses places like the Busy Bee Cafe, and he's got a hotel that's very similar to the Occidental Hotel as part of his story. And obviously what made it big was the TV series that was aired from, I think, 2011 to 2017 that starred Robert Taylor and Lou Diamond Phillips and A. Martinez, and as a neo-Western is the genre. So it's a sheriff. Walt Longmire is the sheriff of the county, not very highly populated, and he's doing a lot of things in the mountains where he has to rescue people and solve cases. And so it's very much based in this area.
Yeah, that's really cool. We actually ended up watching 5 or 6
we
episodes
did.
after you and I talked about that.
Yep.
It's pretty entertaining, and so that's awesome. Now that was all filmed actually down in Santa Fe, because we noticed the square in Santa Fe in the background one time.
Yeah.
And so we're like,
that
I
looks
recognize that
familiar.
square. There was a restaurant I ate at in the background, but it's basically loosely based in this area. So, well, awesome. All right, well, one more kind of fun fact that I wanted to chat about was the Outlaws Canyon. So my understanding is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and his gang, correct me if I'm wrong, but and I just read briefly about the stuff last night, but they would go down to this canyon. This is southwest of Kaycee.
Isn't this the hole in the wall?
Well, the hole in the wall is differently than the canyon. The hole in the wall is kind of where the Red Mountains break. And
Okay.
he herded sheep or cattle. Herd of cattle through. That's called the hole in the wall. 2 different places. I learned that last night on YouTube.
Okay.
It's amazing what you learn on YouTube.
Really? I know. People are learning now on YouTube from us. Haha.
But anyway, my understanding is that him and his gang and other outlaws would use this canyon where there's a lot of natural caves in the, I don't know if it's limestone, bedrock, whatever it is, and they would hide out there. Is there truth there? Do we know that for sure?
There's some truth to it, and there's also good legends, so that makes for a good story, whether there's truth or not. But Butch Cassidy, that was kind of a place where they would meet back up after pulling heists and maybe do some planning and organization things. But yeah, they were through that area, both the hole in the wall and the Outlaw Canyon. It's pretty close together down there in that part of the county. And then there were a lot of, this was the post Johnson County War era, so there was a lot of local people who were empathetic towards the outlaws and the rustlers, and they would still try to help them out if they needed it. So the ranchers down there were leery of the federal government. They were leery of the big cattle barons, so they were willing to take sides with people like Butch Cassidy and Tom O'Day and Flat-Nosed George Curry and Harvey Logan and these kind of outlaws that were down there doing the things they were doing. So yeah, that was a popular place for them to kind of reconvene after different heists and kind of hang low, and it gave them a good strategic spot so they could tell where law enforcement was if they were trying to trail them.
That's just incredible.
It
history
is.
here.
It's so neat.
I absolutely love the Indian Wars and the Old West stories, all that, and this is just such a great place. So and I'm not going to touch much on this because I know it's in the top 10, but we also had a big war here in Johnson County that kind of came
And
to
we're going to talk about
came to an end at
that.
the TA Ranch, which we're going to be talking about. I know
Yeah.
we're gonna talk
Okay.
about that.
I'm just letting you know that we're talking about that.
She yells at me for like
Because he never reads the top 10,
encroaching in on
and then
her.
he'll do his fun facts and ruin my top 10.
That's not true.
It's so true.
Kind of true.
It's so true.
But anyway, so and Anita, feel free to jump in when you can. We want you to participate. We're going to talk about camping options, all that kind of after we talk about the top 10. That's kind of the normal format that we do. And so we're going to tell everybody how beautiful the resort is.
That's
there. We absolutely
gorgeous.
love this resort.
Yes.
We'll talk a little bit about that and why to stay here. But you want to go ahead and get started on the top 10?
Yes. Okay. Because we're starting at number 10, obviously, because we go 10 to 1. And we have not done this one yet. So I'm excited because this is going to be today, I'm thinking, because tomorrow we're going down to the Outlaw Canyon, right?
That's right.
Okay. So I think today I'm heading over after the podcast. And this is the wool mill that you guys have here in Johnson County. And what I thought was really interesting is that I was like, what is that noise? Road noise, sorry. Took me a second to figure that out. But there's the sheeping industry that's here, and was really interesting when I was reading about this last night, that you had the original cattle farmers and then you had sheep farmers that came in, and there was some kind of tension between them because the cattle farmers are like, nah, you got to stay off our land. The sheep are going to ruin it. But eventually everybody kind of got along. And now there's a really good size kind of sheeping/wool industry here, and there is a wool mill, which is the Meadow wool, and they are a spinning mill that processes all the wool from the local farmers, and then they sell all the products there too. So I'm excited to see this, and then you can do a tour of the facility. So I'm assuming one of you have been out there to see this and can talk a little bit more about it. Okay.
I've been out there. Probably both of us have been out there, but it's the largest mill in the West.
Is it really? Okay.
They work with local ranchers. They're very conscious about sustainability and ethical farming and all these kind of things. So they have their priorities straight, and it is a great facility. They put out some great product, and it's open. You can walk around, check out the process as they're making it. They have some videos. Both you can watch them in the shop, and then on their website as well. You can check out their videos of what they do and how they do it. And of course, by products there, they have hats and scarves and tons of yarn options, and that's a great place.
That's awesome. I love that. And we're going to talk about some of the drives that are available out here that we have done, and we passed a lot of these sheep farms, and it's just it's so neat. For me, it's interesting to see sheep in Wyoming because I don't know, in my head, I think of sheep in like green rolling hills, pastures, and out here it's great wide open. So anyway, yeah. Well, you quit looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, I don't know anything about sheep, so I can't comment.
I don't know. I don't know a whole lot about sheep either.
I'm going to let her go by herself.
You are, aren't you?
Probably. The dogs need babysitting.
They do. You get to wear them out. Okay.
Maybe she'll buy some gifts there.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
Maybe you'll buy me a nice woven shirt.
Maybe some socks. Maybe a sock.
All right, moving on to number 9. I know you're pretty excited about this one, too.
I'm so excited about this, and I think I've decided I'm going to go Friday. Okay, so there's an Amish community here, and I am so infatuated with the Amish. So we were supposed to go to Lancaster County in Pennsylvania, which is one of the largest Amish communities, and RV problems meant we couldn't go. So I was a little sad about that. So I'm going to go to Yoder's Market, which is in this Amish community. And I understand they're pretty famous for a few things. Friday, they do their fry pies, which we had one of those in Michigan, and it was to die for. And then Saturdays, they're known for their donuts. And those are made fresh those days. But I understand it's a big store, big market, and they sell literally a little bit of everything. Is that right?
Yeah, they've just expanded to 2 buildings out at Yoder's Country Store. So they have furniture and baked goods, candies, home decor, all sorts of items. Then, as you mentioned, Friday they put out a table of little pies, fried pies, and then Saturday is the tables of several options of donuts. You got your glazed, you got filled. It's amazing. You can fill up a box and
maple bacon.
Maple bacon.
We've had those before. They're good.
Oh, they're so good. Maybe we'll go back Saturday too in the morning.
I'm just throwing out my diet until we get to
I
Montana.
know, really.
It's only 10 minutes out the town, so I mean, you could do both.
I could do both days. I could get the fry pie on Friday and the donuts on Saturday, and then a lot of regret on Sunday.
Yeah, I'll hear about it all night long.
I can't believe I ate all that. My stomach hurts. Yep. And then I do it again. But so I just think it's incredible that, here in Wyoming, that there's a substantial Amish community. Very cool. And in Johnson County. Mm-hmm. Yay.
And you said last night that there's some, I don't want to use the word strange, but some They love their cinnamon rolls here, is what I'm getting at.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty common thing everywhere in the area. Is that correct?
Well, I'm a newcomer too, so it's new to me, but I don't know if Anita knows. It seems like every shop you can go into, you can find someone making cinnamon rolls.
Making cinnamon rolls, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I know. So maybe I'll try a cinnamon roll too, because the Amish bake all of their stuff in a wood-fired oven, which I think is really cool too. So I'm just gonna be sick for like a week. It's gonna be so worth it though.
Oh yeah.
I know. Okay, so number 8, we did do this, and I really, really enjoyed this. And this was the Dry Creek Petrified Tree Environmental Education Area. Huge mouthful. But it's basically an old marshy, foresty area that is no longer, but the petrified remains of some trees are there. And I gotta let listeners know. So it's a little less than a mile kind of circle hike. You kind of go up a hill, up around a ridge, and back down again. And when we first started off, you come to the first sign, and I'm like, this is it. And then you go to the next sign, you're like, oh, okay, well, there's more stuff. And then the next sign, oh, okay, this is getting really cool now. Like you could literally see the rings of the trees, which I thought was so cool. In stone. And then at the very end, you've got the grand poobah of them all of petrified trees, which I just thought was so fascinating because it's so large.
Yeah, whoever did that trail definitely had a marketing degree, because you start off really slow, like, what are we doing here for? This is fun. And by the end, you're like, wow, look at the rings right here.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. And we got to take the dogs. They got to walk around. And it's just beautiful country out there, too. I was telling Toby last night that it just feels like Indian country to me. As I said, the rolling... the
rolling plains.
Yeah, the rolling plains, but the grasslands.
Yeah, what's the grass that grows out there? Do you know? Like, is it?
It's prairie grass.
Prairie grass.
So,
okay.
Just that ancient. Yeah, and and then the darker green is the sagebrush that grows in around, and through the grasses as well.
But yeah, just seeing the rolling hills and all that, and you see that by this petrified forest, but you also see it up in the Fort Phil Kearny area.
Oh yeah.
Maybe the hills are a little bit bigger. I don't know if they're called mountains at that point, ridges or whatever they're called up there. Yeah,
foothills.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's definitely, you can feel you're in Indian country.
Yeah.
Just absolutely, and it takes stunning pictures. If you're a photographer, it just takes breathtaking pictures. It really does.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed that a lot more than I thought. Like we left, and I was like, we don't have to go to the petrified forest now. And he's like, well, that's still a little different than this. And I'm like, yeah, but this was so cool. I mean, and I think I liked it so much because we were literally the only 2 people there with our dogs. You can't see anything or anyone. You can't see any of the ranches that are around there. And so it's neat to imagine what that would have looked like however many years ago when trees and other things were growing there. So it was fascinating.
Right. We have to warn the listeners and the people watching on YouTube that it is kind of difficult to find.
Yes, it is.
We actually had GPS coordinates from somebody else that visited.
Gwendolyn Cole.
Is it on Google? Do you know if you can Google it and find it?
It is, because I did Google it and did find it.
Okay. But the signage is poor. You've got to find it on Google and just...
and you have to put in the full name. So I'm hoping, Bo, you're putting this up, and that's the Dry Creek Petrified Tree Environmental Education Area. And when you put that in, you can find it. And it'll actually, you can go to their website too, and it'll give you coordinates of how to get there as well.
Right. We passed a group of 5 or 6
Oh
llamas.
my gosh, they were so cute. Yes, they had recently been shorn. And so they had these cute little fluffy heads like my golden doodle. And then the rest of them were not fluffy, and they were just adorable. We had to stop and take pictures. And the one was like an overbite with his little teeth sticking out. It was adorable. Yeah,
so
made my day.
Moving on to number 7.
I know.
We drove over 400 miles this weekend. Yes. So we literally did number 7 over the weekend.
Yes, which is take a drive. And there is literally no shortage of drives in this area. And I was talking to my mom the other day, and I'm like, so Mom, we went from this drive. So we left here from Buffalo. We headed south on 25 down to Kaycee, spent some time there, and we'll talk about that in another one of the top 10s. But then we looped back this slip road to Hazelton Road, back up to 16. And I'm like, Mom, so you're just driving along, and all of a sudden it's like road ends at 100 feet, wham, and now you're just dirt and gravel. And I'm like, and it's a regular road, but it's dirt and gravel for, I don't know, we were on that thing for an hour and a half.
We were on there longer than that. Yeah. It seemed like 2 or 3 hours. What it seemed like. You've driven it.
Yeah, it's a great drive. I went the other direction from what you guys did.
Okay.
It takes you up into the foothills, and you've got great views into the valleys below, and you can come down or go up through the Red Wall country down just outside of Kaycee. So, and there's a reservoir up there that's kind of a neat spot to stop and check out. So yeah, there's a lot of places to stop, take pictures and look around.
And all the sheep farms that you get to pass. And yeah, it was just a stunning, stunning drive. We stopped so many times on those switchbacks because we were going up and the canyon was behind us, the red wall. So we would stop and take pictures behind us. And it was just, it doesn't even look real. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just gorgeous.
So if you're listening to this audio podcast, we would encourage you to come out and look at the YouTube as well, because we're going to have a lot of videos showing the area, and it's definitely a lot more interactive. But if you get a chance, we're talking about a hidden gem here, folks. This is, we get a lot of calls, we get a lot of emails saying, hey, we love the Yellowstones, we love this and that, but we want to find these hidden gems. We're giving you one right now. This is a hidden gem.
This is a hidden gem.
There's so much to do.
Right. There's so much to do, and this is not going to be packed with so many people and so much traffic that it's not fun anymore.
That's exactly right. So the accessibility is great. The freedom from just having crowds and just being able to get out and be literally by yourself largely, right? To explore the area at your convenience and your timing and not feeling rushed or pressured, and just truly a sense of getting away.
Yes.
And in beautiful country.
Beautiful, like stunningly, amazingly, gorgeously beautiful. There's not enough adjectives to describe. He's probably sick and tired.
Did a good job.
Oh, thank you. I could come up with a few more. But like when we're out and about, I'm like, oh, babe, just look at this. Oh, babe, look at that. It's so beautiful. Oh, babe, did you see this? He's always like, yes, babe, I did.
Yeah, so when you and Toby, correct me if I'm not using the right term or whatever. So I don't remember what road. We were coming out of Kaycee, and then we turned left on Slip Road. And you go through the red wall. Is that what you're referring to that is? You kind of go through the red wall.
Yeah.
And then you start climbing up the hill and look back at that red wall. It looks like Mars. I'm sure we're going to have videos and pictures flashing up here for the YouTubers, but it's just breathtaking. I felt like we were on Mars. I really did.
Yeah, it was just unreal. And it was just neat just to see how it looked like somebody took their hand and mashed up the earth into the flat plain below it for that big red wall.
Right.
It was incredible.
We're not even talking about the most famous ride in the area. You want to tell them about the most famous one?
Well, yeah, because it's kind of akin to me, which is the
Crazy Woman.
Crazy Woman. I'm a crazy woman. So this is the Crazy Woman Canyon. And it's a drive that you can either take from the top of the canyon down or the bottom of the canyon up. Beautiful, beautiful. It is dirt gravel. So, for the listeners, just, there was nothing that a vehicle couldn't cross. Just make sure your vehicle is capable. So if you're sitting in one of these low rider little Honda Civics, it's probably not a good idea to take it on this road.
How many times have you two been up and down Crazy Woman Canyon?
I can't even count anymore. So it's my favorite getaway because there's no cell service in the canyon. So we need to get away from work and have our downtime where nobody can call about anything.
Yes.
Right.
It's because it's so beautiful and it's so close. I love that I tell people, I describe it, it's like Crazy Woman Creek flows through, and you're driving on either side of the creek as you go through the canyon, and I say it feels like a continual waterfall.
Yeah.
And just the sounds of the creek echoing off the wall as you're driving through, you got your windows rolled down, and it's just, so many places you can jump out and just get some of those iconic scenes, snapshots of what Crazy Woman is, wading in the creek, dropping a line, taking a nap, those kinds of things under the tree canopies. And it is just one of my absolute favorite things to do, and it's 15 minutes away.
Right. And it's another one of those really interesting landscape things because you're just coming across the plains and all of a sudden, boom, here's the edge of the mountain and it splits open and here's a canyon.
It just kind of drops away and like you're there, and it's such an incredible feeling because I don't think I've ever been to a canyon where that's been my experience, right? Where you drive in all of a sudden all oh my gosh, we're in it. And you just it's a pretty incredible feeling.
It is. Especially when you turn around, you're like, how is this here? We just came from that. How is this here? So, we really enjoyed that. We went through, Toby took us through our first night here, and then we went back and took our dogs with us and had them play in the creek. And
went the reverse way that time.
Yeah,
so,
that time we went up the canyon instead of down the canyon.
But honestly, Route 16, there are just so much cool things to do. We saw a moose on Route 16. I told you that. We unfortunately, he got away too quickly. We couldn't get a camera on him, or a video, any kind of thing. But
just our eyeballs.
Right. But there's lots of hiking trails. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But there's just the drive on 16 is just beautiful in itself.
Yes.
We found this, I'm sure it's known to you guys, but to us, it's like, a secret road, Hospital Hill. We went up Hospital Hill. We're like, let's just take it. Nothing saying it's private land, nothing saying I can't drive up it. So we've got anxious dogs, so we drove them all the way up to the top and let them out and just let them run free.
And they're just like, they were so happy.
But that's what I love about out west here. That's pretty common in Wyoming. I'm not sure about Montana, but we've done that all over Wyoming.
Oh, yeah. All the BLM land. and
up even towards Yellowstone and Cody area, we've done that as well. Just find a random road that doesn't say private land and go down
just go out of the wilderness and just, make sure you're gassed up.
Oh, yeah. Gassed up.
You got to do that. So, and Sweet 16, it's called Highway 16 over the mountain. It's called Sweet 16. It's a national scenic byway.
Oh,
I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did.
So,
yeah,
so it's one of those roads where, you should do it because it is, you've got canyons on both sides and the beauty that you drive through in between is just fantastic.
It is beautiful.
Absolutely stunning. Do we have another road tour? Was that the only?
No. Well, there's so many. We could talk endlessly about the road tour. We could literally talk endlessly about everything on this top 10.
But definitely coming here, definitely do the Crazy Woman. You're not going to get out of here without doing it because you see it everywhere, so you have to do it. But we highly recommend if you've got more time, if you're here a little bit more extended, definitely try the Slip Road to Hazelton Road trip. I would recommend starting in Kaycee and coming up. I thought that was a blast, but it works both ways.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving on to number 6.
All right, the Cattle Wars. And this is all about that famous Johnson County War and where this happened at, because it's really neat. The place that it happened, which is the TA Ranch, still exists today. The barn that it took place in still sits there, but then there's so many other cool things you can do with the TA Ranch. And I know that both of you are pretty well versed in the Johnson County Wars. Can you give us like a brief information on, what the Johnson County War was? Thank you. I was like, what are my words?
Sure. The brief rundown is that back in the late 1880s, a lot of the cattle barons brought their cattle to this part of the country so they could use the open range and just set them free. So they had thousands of head of cattle, and they'd have these areas hundreds of miles wide where they had their cattle all over the place. And you'd hire cowboys and stuff to kind of manage it for you and keep them in line. And then you also had homesteaders moving in that kind of wanted these smaller pieces of land sectioned off for their own ability to settle and build a house and have their own little small ranches on there. And they were also trying to acquire their own cattle. So the conflict was between those big ranchers and the small cattlemen. And so there were some bad winters came through and a drought year, and that killed a lot of the large cattle barons' herds off. So they lost a lot of money, a lot of property just through the bad weather and the changing conditions. And they realized Wyoming was not a great place sometimes to have your cattle roaming free and trying to eat and live. So with all those losses, it put stress on the cattle barons, and they kind of took it out on the homesteaders who they thought were actually stealing their cattle. So they put together a list, especially for Johnson County. They thought people up here were stealing the cattle, and the government was sympathetic to it. So they put together a list of people in Johnson County that they wanted taken out, and they hired a group of gunmen to come up and do it.
Jeez.
And so that was in 1892, April that year, was the high point of the cattle war, where there'd been killings and things going on, but they sent up 50 gunmen into the county to wipe out some people. And one of the guys on the list was Nate Champion, was very high on the list for being an organizer of the homesteaders. And so they went and searched where he was down in Kaycee, kind of surrounded the cabin he was in and held siege there for a few hours and shot one of the person he was with. And then later in the day, they set fire to the cabin so that Nate Champion had to have to come rushing out. Mm-hmm. And he came out with his guns blazing, a rifle in one hand and a gun in the other hand. And they shot him 28 times and killed him. And just his death was kind of a big moment in that fight. He went down as a hero and there's statues around the area for him for the siege that he held out and held off all those 50 riflemen for that long. And the time that he did it, the word got up to Buffalo. So Buffalo organized a posse. They knew they were coming to take out the commissioners and the sheriff. So they put together 300 men and started heading south. And meanwhile, the invaders, as they're called, they're heading north, the hired gunmen, and they met at the TA ranch, and the invaders had to take refuge in a barn there and got surrounded by the posse, and they both dug in for multiple days. And so there's not a lot of death involved in Johnson County War, but there's kind of a lot of gunfighting and, could have been a lot uglier if the invaders had made it all the way up and took out the government like they planned. But the U.S. cavalry went in from the ford up here at that time and rescued the invaders. And so they were kind of seen as being on the side of the cattle barons by rescuing them. And then really they never got any punishment from the government for killing Nate Champion or for even trying to do what they did in the county. So the local settlers were a little bit miffed at the government that they never prosecuted the invaders for what they did or held the cattle barons responsible. So it kind of set the tone for Wyoming in terms of being a place that's small government and leery of the federal government, and then also kind of set the tone for establishing not that open range is gone because it's still here, but you had to start putting up your fences and keep an eye on where your cattle were, so it was less of an open range type of state.
So as you said, this all came to a head at the TA Ranch, which it was called something different back then, but today it's referred to as TA Ranch. And the first day we came here, you actually took us to the TA Ranch. You want to tell us a little bit about the TA Ranch and what's kind of going on now there?
Sure. It's one of 7 guest ranches in the county, so you can book a room and stay at a cabin out there and enjoy the property, which is a beautiful piece of land south of Buffalo. Enjoy the horseback riding and other activities they have on the ranch. They have a cookhouse which serves great meals.
Oh, it was delicious.
Farm to table, so you get fresh beef and pork and
bison.
And bison.
I had the bison ribeye and it was amazing.
Yeah. So it's a great place to check out. Like I said, one of our 7 guest ranches in the county that you can stay at, but also enjoy other experiences like the horseback riding and dinner.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to see the actual barn where this the Johnson County War took place, and there was actually a few bullet holes that we saw.
Yeah, and then cutouts where they had put their rifles through, which ended up being a bad idea because it made them a great target. Oh, hey, Bob's shooting from the hole. Let's shoot back at the hole.
Aiming for the hole. Yeah, exactly. All right.
They do give tours of that, so you can go out there and talk with a member of the family that owns the ranch, the Giles family, and so they'll take you around and tell you all the stories and show you all the sights, and so which is pretty. It's nice to hear that oral history come from them as the current owners of the ranch. So.
That's neat. And then for the animal lovers, they did have this miniature little mule or donkey. I don't know. It was the cutest thing in the world. It was so sweet, and I had to scratch its little head. So. I just want to let people know that there are little animals out there too. I tried to put it in my purse.
Tried to put it into Toby's car.
I did. And Toby said he would bring it back, but then I don't think Randy would be here.
Then there'd be another Johnson County War over the donkey. So, then where would we be?
Where would we be? I would have a donkey and no husband.
Right. So moving on to number 5.
Well, this is an easy one. Get outside. There is so much outdoor activities to do here in Johnson County. I mean, the list is endless. And I don't want people to think that this is just like summertime, warm weather activities. This is a year-round place to visit. In fact, let's start with some of the winter activities because I think a lot of people shy away from that. And I know that there's people that enjoy winter activities because like this guy does. Me, not so much. But yeah, so what are some of the winter activities here?
We have great snowmobiling, some Great Lakes for ice fishing, which is very popular. We have a Nordic track, so cross-country skiing that's groomed every week, has a multiple trails up through the mountains. So you go up in the Bighorn Mountains, large parking lot, and you'll see plates from many states, people up there skiing and enjoying that area, the Bighorns. Like I said, the snowmobiling's big. There's a downhill ski area just across the county line at Meadowlark Ski Resort, so that's also popular in the wintertime as well. There's actually the TA Ranch puts on a fire and ice festival, so they celebrate the winter with some activities out there to polar plunge. You can go sit in a cold bath for as long as you can and earn some prizes.
It's a Viking festival. You forgot that word. That's important.
Yes.
All things Viking. It is pretty incredible.
That's so cool. So, Toby, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about that I've heard about there in Buffalo is the rodeo. I would love to hear more about the rodeo you guys put on.
Sure. Yeah, Buffalo has quite a bit of rodeo tradition, and it takes place throughout the summer. We have the Longmire Days event, includes a big rodeo on that. There's a county fair and rodeo that has a rodeo with that event as well. And then Chris Ledoux Days down in Kaycee. And then Buffalo has a weekly series of the Tuesday night Cowgirls Rodeo that includes women and also kind of younger rodeo competitors doing different events. And then down in the town of Kaycee, they have a Friday night rodeo series every other week, sponsored by the Lions Club down there.
Oh, that's fabulous. So for rodeo goers that whether you want to participate or just want to catch a rodeo, I mean, this is like catching a rodeo out west. You can't get any more Western than that. So it's definitely something you need to add to your list and check out, because going and seeing, especially the kids, watching them compete in a rodeo, I think is one of the greatest experiences you can ever capture.
Yeah, those Tuesday rodeos are interesting for that. You got some young people out there riding horses, doing the barrel racing and different things. And some of those kids grow up to be professional rodeo cowboys.
Yes, they do, which is incredible. So, hey, if you're in the area, be sure to check out one of the rodeos and support the locals and a passion that they absolutely love.
It is the official sport of Wyoming.
Yes, it is. Amen to that. And then something I learned recently too, fat tire biking. And we actually, so Ron, his son, does fat tire biking in the wintertime because they live up in Wisconsin. So lots of snow up there. But yeah, so fat tire biking that you can do out here as well. And
the trail, the Clear Creek Trail, you'll talk about, I'm sure. But in the wintertime, it's almost as popular as it is in the summer. You'll see people out there skiing and biking and walking their dogs. So yeah, there's all 12 months of the year you can be doing something outside.
Absolutely.
Here. So for those crazy RVers, are there any open RV parks in the area in the winter?
Buffalo KOA is open all year long.
Oh, you are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, do you insulate your water lines, or how does that work?
So for the most part, we have 16 sites that have there are full hookup sites all season long. But most people that are coming through, they don't want to deal with the water lines freezing. Not all of them are 4-season RVs, and so we keep our bathhouse open all year. So you have water. You do have electric and sewer hookups for your needs. You can fill your water tank. Use our bathhouse, and our facilities are always open, and it's a great place to kind of launch out and do all those exploration up in the mountains or locally here on the lakes.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Very few campgrounds, especially this close to the mountains and this far north, stay open this late. And so that's really good to know. Yeah. I actually was shocked you said that. I thought you were going to say, no, we closed in November, whenever. But
actually, my husband and our family bought the KOA in 2020. And one of the very first questions people asked around town is, hey, are you open? Are you going to be open all year? Because it traditionally had not been. And the recommendation was that we do that because there are an incredible amount of RVers coming through November 1st to April 1st. And so it was kind of shocking to us how many people actually did come through. And they love it. They love our campground. They love having a place to operate out of. And so it's been a pleasure to host those people that, kind of come out and, for whatever reason they're here, are braving those,
right?
Because the winter here can be 50 degrees one day, it could be 30 below the next day.
Right.
So, I mean, it's such a roller coaster ride, but it never stays long, whatever you're looking at. And so our winters are to me pleasant. I lived in Minnesota for 9 years,
okay.
and so it's not like snow on top of snow on top of snow. The UV really kind of dissipates the snow in between snow, so it's easy to get around. It's easy. I mean, we've hiked in the mountains all the way through the 1st of January.
Oh, wow.
We've been able to get back up there to many of the trails, in March. So, I mean, it just kind of depends on the year. And if you can sit out a snowstorm for a day, and the next day or two, you'll be out and about and getting right back into the groove of things, whatever you got planned.
She's speaking music to my ears.
I know.
10 years ago, you would have never heard of anybody doing winter camping. And it's because you're finding more and more people going full time. And, everybody chases the sun
Yes.
in their RV, for a while. But I think you're starting to get this movement where people are really wanting to go north and experience winters in different places. So
I think I could do it just as long as we always had an out.
well, there's wheels on our motorhome. You can see our motorhome
Okay,
right beside us.
good.
They put
Woo.
wheels on them actually, and they can move.
Well, it's a great way to explore this region. And we're not Mount Rushmore. We're not
Right.
Yellowstone. I mean, we're pretty accessible all year, but it's a great place to sit back and relax and really experience the culture that's here in Buffalo and kind of get to know people. We're a very friendly town. We have a great vibe here.
Yeah.
And so it's a great place to call home for a while and just get out and explore all of these things that we're talking about at your leisure, right? And just do it in a different kind of year, a time of the year where you're not elbowing people and you're just walking in and you're getting to know, the owners and the managers of the restaurants and businesses around town, and it's great.
So that's just one season. Let's talk about the spring,
Oh,
summer,
yeah.
and fall. I mean, there's of course lots of hiking in the area,
Hiking, biking,
kayaking,
paddleboarding, because we did the Tyhack Reservoir, which is a beautiful, beautiful little reservoir kind of nestled down in these mountains. And it was just a little small beach. So there was kids out there swimming and kayakers.
This is a very big side-by-side area
Yeah,
too. There's
huge
lots of
side-by-sides.
side-by-side. We down in Crazy Woman Canyon.
Yeah.
We probably passed 20 different side-by-sides probably.
Yeah, so a lot of side-by-siding.
There's 1,500 miles of ORV trails in these mountains.
Really?
Oh my
So you can drive
gosh.
a long time.
1,500 miles.
Well, and that's a big part of the RV community these
Yeah.
days.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm glad you said that because we don't have a side-by-side, so that's not we love to take our Jeep on some of those trails, but that's good. That's good to know. That's a whole nother draw. But what else are we missing, Toby? Here, I know there's a lot more.
We did the Clear Creek hike, and that was very enjoyable. And that's right out of the edge of town. But can't you pick up part of the trail in town and literally hike all the way out to where we were?
Right, it goes
Okay.
right through downtown, and you can hike 12 miles to the west and be on top of a foothill. So yeah, it's a great trail system.
Yeah.
Fly fishing.
Fly fishing.
That was the other
fishing?
one I was missing.
Yeah.
Now, there were some pretty vertical walls when we were down south towards Kaycee and the Bighorns. Is there any rock climbing in the area? Does anybody do rock climbing in the area or not?
I think there's limited here on this side of the mountain, but if you go over the pass in Ten Sleep Canyon, there is an incredible opportunity for mountain climbing
didn't
over
think
there,
about that
rock
area.
climbing over
Yeah.
there. So they have more of those steep cliffs, and they've got some places and access areas that they've got set up for climbers. And so they're really well known for that. So not so much us. We're more of those hiking. So we've got the Cloud Peak Wilderness, which is a wilderness recreation protected area, and so very easy and accessible to get to. It's you can pick. There are hikes for every accessibility to get you into the wilderness. It's not I'm going to the wilderness. I have to be this
Right.
massive hiker. You could there are some walks and hikes that you can take that can get you into that are not strenuous. Hiking the lakes, one of my favorite is a Seven Brothers hike. You literally see 7 lakes.
Oh my gosh.
All the
wow.
way to the back. And it's about a 14-mile turnaround hike. It's absolutely beautiful. Plan all day for that. If not, try to take your stuff up. I'm not a pack my tent in kind of
Yeah,
person. I'm
me
let's
either.
just go see it and
Right.
come back
I
out.
want to come back home and take a shower.
out.
Yes,
In and out.
yeah. And so, we've got Lake Angeline, I'm sorry. Lake Angeline's another similar type hike, which is the upper. So Seven Brothers is kind of that lower. And if you go to Lake Angeline, you overlook Seven
Oh, okay.
Brothers. And so, and the Twin Lakes up there. And that, again, that's about a 12, 13 mile turnaround hike from the trailhead. And so, and then you've got shorter hikes, that just, whether you want to walk by a stream, where you want to go to a lake, where you want to go see a view. The BLM and Forestry Service has a great resource where you can kind of go, I want to see a lake today. I only want to hike 3 miles. They have it
nice.
a chart of what your interests are. So you can kind of plan your hike for the morning, hike for the afternoon, or all day hike or whatever.
Oh, that's perfect. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and so they've done a great job of laying that out, and it kind of tells you what experience. Say, hey, this is more of an intermediate. This is experienced hike. So it kind of really lays it out there for you, and lots of options. And again, my favorite thing is the accessibility. Right?
Yeah.
It's a short, quick drive to a trailhead. You get out, get your hike in, and then you're right. less than an hour, you're back into town, and, for the bigger hikes, they're a little bit further to get into. You have to drive a little further into mountains. But, the accessibility is just incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and again, not the long lines like at Yellowstone or like that. There's no, like the parking lot's full in Zion National Park.
So many times we go for a hike and we literally spend 30 minutes circling a parking lot and going, you know what, forget this.
Well, you remember
we got turned away at Canyonlands at the
They're
southern.
like, sorry, the parking lot's full.
Yeah.
The ranger said, try again later.
Yeah, we showed up and it was a good probably hour drive to get there. We get there for the hike and he's like, yeah, parking lot's full. He's like, you can sit here, but all these people are sitting here too waiting for somebody to leave.
And we got there at like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we slept in and showed up at 10 o'clock.
So I love that you don't have that problem here.
Not at all.
And are going to have probably even more of an epic of a hike here than we would have had there down in Canyonlands.
So
Sorry, Canyonlands.
So I'm sure you guys are struggling with us, sending this out to all these people. You want to keep this beautiful little town to yourself and county to yourself. But
so they just ask that you visit. Just don't move here.
don't look at real estate. Don't look at let us buy one first.
Right,
but,
we got to get one first, and then then it's cut off.
now we talked about that last night. Is that seriously a thing here? People are like, "Hey, we love you to visit and see, but keep moving."
I think there's I think what people are most worried about when they kind of think those things is that we love our culture here.
Right.
Right.
This has been developed over generations of families, and we have a specific mentality, and not that it's exclusive, but we like our friendliness, we like our hospitality, we like being able to have real conversations that we don't necessarily have to we don't have to agree on. We can disagree and still hey, let's go out to dinner now, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that's really important to people.
Preserving that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, they don't want someone to come here and immediately say, hey,
let's change it.
You need to do something different, right? Or worse, like they come here and then they don't participate at all, right?
Gotcha.
And so we have such a vibrant community, and it depends on us being interconnected. And so, historically, the West is one of those places where, we're pretty independent people, I think, but again, that community minded. We just had big fires outside of Buffalo, and you look around now and you look at the massive amounts of people that are putting together, relief funds and working to get hay to the farmers that lost their hay. It's devastating. And so, but yet the outpouring of community, not just in our community, but in our state and in our Western region, like the state surrounding us, has been incredible, right? And so that's what you're signing up for when you come here, right? So
you're not signing up to get away. You get away from everything, but come prepared to be a part of the community, because you being as wide open as it is out here, you need community to survive. You're not going to make it on your own.
You're going to lose power, right? You're going to need something's going to happen, and you're going to need to know your neighbors and want to help your neighbors out. You want to know and be a part of what's happening.
But to all the people here in Buffalo and in Johnson County, if anybody here is listening to this podcast, we're talking to a bunch of RVers. They're all transient people. They don't want to plant roots. That's why they have an RV.
Exactly. This
so
is
I
true.
think we're safe to have this conversation here.
Woo-hoo.
But you ready to move on?
Yes.
All right, what do we got? Number 4.
Yeah, and we talked about this some. This is Explore part of the Bozeman Trail. And the Bozeman Trail was once a major travel route for immigrants that were moving kind of northward up to Montana to all the gold fields and the gold mining that was going on. Head west, young man. Haven't you been told California's full of whiskey, women, and gold? Okay.
I've never heard that.
That's a song. It's part of a Toby Keith song.
Oh, that's why.
So but with all of these mass amount of people traveling, and the Native Americans were like, you're encroaching in our land and our territory. We don't like you. So to protect all these people traveling, they set up several forts. And one of the forts we went to see, which is no longer is the Fort Kearney, but they had, again, the great visitor center. So we did the Fort Kearney, and then we did the Fetterman battle, and they had a big monument out there. Now, I understand out there's a place that you could see wagon wheel ruts. We could not quite figure out where those were.
I think the drone shots I got.
I thought it was further out. So
I think the drone shots I got were the ruts.
I think those were cattle trails.
We're gonna show them up on YouTube right now, and you decide. They look like wagon ruts to me. That was the Bozeman Trail.
It was slightly off a little.
Anyway, we're still arguing about my video footage.
Yes, we are.
She said, those look like cow trowels. And I'm like, no, those look like wagon wheels.
We're just going to say what they are. We don't know.
I'm going to send it to Darius Rucker, the king of Wagon Wheel. He can tell us. I don't know if you made that reference. I made a country reference
You
there.
did good job.
I don't listen to
I
country
think Darius
music.
Rucker would be so proud of you right
And
now.
he could tell us whether these are really a wagon wheel that made these.
Yeah, and then we did the Box Canyon battle site.
It's actually not called it's called a
Wagon.
skirmish.
Skirmish.
Yeah.
Wagon box.
Wagon box,
That's
not
correct.
the box wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like when I say a clipper nail instead of nail clipper. Yeah.
That was really interesting. Let's talk about that just really briefly. I know we're running kind of not late on time. We don't have any time.
We have no time.
But we try to respect everybody that's listening's time. But this was a really interesting skirmish because this just had came off of several months before the Fetterman, or several months after the Fetterman massacre. And they got all this wood from about 5 miles away from Felt Kearney. That's where they got all the
these
wood to
poor
build.
guys are just gathering wood.
Right.
You know?
They're out there gathering wood, but they were constantly under attack
Yeah.
here and there and just small skirmishes kind of thing. And so the fort would send out troops to protect them, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this time was different. And it was different because they had something new. And what is that, Toby? I see you looking at me shaking your head. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
The rifles made the difference, that they could load them quicker and get more shots off. And so the Fetterman fight, only the 2 civilians had those kind of rifles, and the rest of the military had just the basic single shot rifles that took longer to load. And so that kind of made them more of a target. But by the time of wagon box fight, they'd received the better guns and could defend themselves in that area, so that they were able to hold off the attack.
Yeah, and the name of the rifle is escaping me right now. Winchester, I think it was a Winchester. Maybe
I don't
not.
think it was a Winchester, actually.
I think it's Springfield.
Yeah,
That's what
Springfield.
Springfield,
That sounds
something loading.
Like breech loader.
Breech loader, okay. Yeah, because before they used to have to stuff all the stuff down like the Civil War stuff, the gunpowder, the ball and all that. And so there was over 1,000 Indians that attacked. It was a 30? I think around 30, 20 to 30 people.
Wagon box, yep.
And they were able to hold off all 1,000 for hours. This happened for like 3 or 4 hours was what I read. And then finally, troops from Phil Kearney came out, and they had their howitzers. They just all scattered. But they held them out for 3 or 4 hours with just 28 people, and they were shocked, and they took heavy casualties too, is my understanding.
Right, yeah, and they set up the wagon boxes to make themselves a little corral that they could defend themselves in as well. But,
Right. Yeah, we'll put that up on the screen right now.
That was neat to see.
So that we had a picture. They had a example of, or that's actually a real wagon box they have up there.
Yep.
But I don't think from that situation, it was just an example. But very, very fun. So
Yes.
sorry to digress on that.
Bozeman Trail and the Johnson County War, and then also the Outlaw Canyon, those are all, there's an annual tour of those coordinated by the museum in Kaycee, you'll be talking about soon. So if people want to see those as part of a tour that has a guide who's telling you all about the stops along the way, you can look that information up on both the Hoofprints website and on our website as well.
Very cool.
Which leads us perfectly into number 3, which is visit the town of Kaycee. And Kaycee is about 45 minutes south of here.
45 miles, but 30 minutes.
Okay.
We have 80-mile-an-hour speed limits here.
Oh, that's right.
So.
So yes, us Easterners, we get excited if
Right.
we hit 70 miles an hour. Out here west, they're like, just go as fast as you want. It's fine.
My Jeep's so loaded down, I don't think it can hit 80. we had a headwind, and I'm like, and it's manual shift, so I'm like in 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd. I'm in 3rd gear going down the freeway with facing a headwind with all the garbage we have in the back of it.
Right.
So,
I know.
but anyway.
So Kaycee's a tiny, tiny little town, but I think spending a day there you could do because the Hoofprints of the Past Museum, like you were talking about, Toby, they offer these different tours, but they typically only offer them like once a year, maybe twice a year. And these are big, like, you're paying $100 a person, but you are, getting a lunch, you're out there for 8 hours. I mean, this is a big, big tour, but it's a great way to get really familiar with all of the information and everything that happened in those areas, especially if that's something that you're into. If you're not able to plan your trip for one of those days, the Hoofprints of the Past Museum, what a hidden gem. Oh my goodness. In a town, and I'm talking this town is like our hometown, like 260 people. In this Hoofprints of the Past Museum, the amount of artifacts that they have collected and things that they have gathered from everything around the area was so incredibly impressive. It was done so well. It's big. Plus out back, they had the old wagons. They had the old homestead. So there was just a lot of things to see there. One of my favorite things that we saw was this wooden leg that they found on the Oregon Trail in an excavation, and it was like a guy who specializes
like a prosthetic,
like a
wooden
prosthetic,
leg.
like
not like a wooden leg from a doll.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Well, I'm just clarifying for the listeners.
For
that's
the
all.
listener.
I know you know what it was.
I know what it was. Yeah, it makes sense in my head. But yeah, this prosthetic leg, and apparently it was so advanced for its time. It had hinges like at the ankle and the knee. I mean, this thing was so impressive, and it was just sitting in this cabinet, and so I really, really enjoyed that place.
When it looks like a lot of the family members or families in town or in Johnson County have donated a lot of these things because they found them on their ranch. And same thing with the museum here in town in Buffalo, which we'll talk about soon. It just seems like a lot of the families really understand that this is something bigger than me just holding on to this. Let's let the world see this and put it into a museum. And that's special. That tells
it's very special.
Tells you how just what's the word I'm looking for? How the community comes together to make something happen. So.
Well, and they're proud of this, and it's something that they want to share with others. So definitely make the trip down to Kaycee, even if it's just to see the hoof prints of the past museum. But hopefully you've worked up a great appetite. Head across the street to the Invasion Bar and Grill. Okay, so they had this red and green chili, and the way they spell the chili on the menu was like the chili pepper, the CHILE. And so we're like, what's the red chili?
I thought it was like a red sauce, green sauce, like you get at a Mexican restaurant. That's what I thought it was.
So Randy's like, so is this like a chili sauce? She's like, no, it's like chili. And we're like, oh, okay.
She's like, yeah, we put pork in it and bacon. And I'm like, oh, that sounds good.
Well, sold. So Randy got the green chili. I got the red chili.
And I got a bowl and had no idea it was going to be like as
huge.
Big and meaty as it was. But I ate that and then I was full for my hamburger. But I was like, I'm going to man through and eat through this hamburger as well.
And the hamburger was delicious. And the food there was great. And it is your typical like hole in the wall eatery / bar and grill. And it was perfect. And then I'm a huge Chris Ledoux fan. So then we headed over to the Chris Ledoux Park. For those of you out there going, who's Chris Ledoux? He was big in the cowboy world and the country music world. So he at one point was a world champion bareback rider. And he played country music, and his country music just really spoke to a lot of folks in the cowboy community.
So bareback is the cowboy naked or is the horse naked? I don't know anything about horse.
Depends on what kind of bareback you're doing.
I've heard the term.
Bareback meaning no saddle. No saddle.
Okay.
Bronc riding. Bareback bronc riding.
I just wanted to see if I could get you to bareback on a horse for me.
Oh my
Sorry,
gosh.
I digress.
This podcast took a whole other turn.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, back to Chris Ledoux.
Okay.
So they're in the Chris Ledoux Park. They have a beautiful statue of him. And his family still lives there in town, which is really cool. And then the Rusty Spur is across the street from that. So if you are a Chris Ledoux fan like me, find out when they're open, because unfortunately they were closed the day we were there. But they have more information on Chris Ledoux, memorabilia, and stuff you can buy.
But the gas station had some stuff, right?
They did. They only had a couple T-shirts.
And that was the Sinclair,
It was the Sinclair.
On the way kind of out of town.
Mm-hmm. But actually, the Sinclair also is kind of like a little stop in itself, too, because they had a good amount of stuff that they were selling in there outside of just like food and, snacks and like real food. But then they had like soaps and like handcrafted beeswax soaps that were made locally and Chris Ledoux stuff and really pretty leather purses. And I was like, oh, well, this is impressive.
Yeah, it's really a tiny town.
Tiny town.
Don't expect much, but we told you the 3 top things to do. See the museum, get the green chili.
Chris Ledoux.
And Chris Ledoux, if you like.
There are 2 RV parks down there as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Powder River Campground and Kaycee RV Park. And then also it's a great launching pad for the Red Wall Country and Outlaw Canyon area.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
I forgot about that because you got Outlaw Canyon there, you got the Red Wall and all that. So there's stuff to do down there.
There is, and which is what we did. We went down to Kaycee, down Interstate 25, and then did the Slip Road, Hazelton Road up to 16, and then back to Buffalo. So a big kind of loop. So that was a beautiful drive. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, moving on to number 2, let's talk about the big one.
Yeah, spend a day in Buffalo. And oh my goodness. So we've been in and out of downtown, all over downtown, but we've yet to dedicate an entire day to downtown. So I think that's going to be, did we say
Tomorrow.
Friday?
Well, yeah, Friday.
Yeah, so Friday is going to be our day. So we have ate at a couple places down there. I think, are we eating at the
We're
Paisan?
eating at Yeah, because Guy Fieri was here just a few months ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And we'll talk a little bit about, he was here at the campground as well. I'd like to talk about that too.
Last year, a year ago, Father's Day, he was here, Father's Day weekend. And so he did a big show for Paisanos and then just Guy Fieri's road trip. And so, yeah, it was pretty great.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
That's really cool. But
Yep.
yeah,
So,
yes, we're
yeah,
gonna
and
do
there's-
that on Friday.
Yeah, and there's a lot to do and see in your compact little downtown, which is great. So many stores, so many restaurants, bakery, coffee shop. You have the Occidental, which I'm just going to touch on because we're going to talk about that more. The murals, the statues. There's a cute little movie theater. So what's HGTV's? How did they get into the town to refurbish and rehab the movie theater? How did that come about?
Do you know that story, Toby?
It was before my time. So
Okay.
yeah.
So there was, what is it called? Best Little Town in America.
Okay.
And so you could submit for that, and the chamber, someone on the chamber actually submitted an application for that, and we were chosen. We were the first show on
Oh, cool.
first
Oh,
episode.
wow.
And so they came to town, and gosh, it's been so long now, I can't remember. Anyway, one of the HGTV guys came with his crew, and they looked at the movie theater, and because it had just been purchased and they were looking to renovate it, and so they came up with him and worked with him on that. They coordinated with a local artist for the big Buffalo mural there on the city building there, right as you come into downtown. And so at the Occidental complex right there as you're coming into that. And then they had one of their give back to the community. So they picked a veteran in our community and met with them and helped renovate their space for them to kind of set them kind of new foot forward, coming home and reestablishing here after being in the military. And so kind of did a facelift on the house, and then revamped her kitchen for her totally, and just some other cool things for her and her daughter. And that was just it was a real fun project for them to be in town. I think they were here just over a week or two and doing all of those projects. And so it was a pretty incredible boost for our town, because we here on the campground had a lot of people going, say, okay, where's that house?
Right.
Like, we're not telling.
Exactly. It's a secret.
But Buffalo's small, and if
Right.
you drive around enough, you can't really get lost. You can probably stumble upon the house. So, yeah.
That's fab. And then there's so many great things. One of the other things we did the Jim Gatchell Memorial Museum yesterday.
I'd like to talk about the one artifact in there that I just thought was the
Yes,
coolest thing.
yes, talk about
I actually
that.
ran across this on YouTube, and I was so excited to see it, and I got to see it. But again, linking back to the Fetterman battle. So pretty much all the bodies, all 81, were mutilated except for one. And this one person was not touched, and they actually put a buffalo blanket over him, a huge sign of respect from
Yeah.
the Indians. And the story goes that it was the bugler, I think his name was Metzler, if I remember right.
Metzger, yeah.
Metzger, okay. And he apparently, the buglers, he was the bugler, and they're not assigned weapons. And so all he had was this bugle in his hand. And he was, excuse me for lack of better words, but he was beating the Indians off with a bugle.
Beating them.
Beating them off with a...
Maybe not beating them off.
Well, I'm saying beating them off of him is what I'm referring to.
Maybe you should add
Defending
that.
himself.
Thank you. Again, this podcast is going a crazy direction.
He was fighting the
Yes.
Indians off
Better
with
choice
the
of words.
bugle. And they have this bugler. They're pretty sure this is the bugle. I guess they found it some years later, and they're all pretty certain it was the bugle. This thing's beat to death.
It is just mashed.
I assume you've seen it.
It's crushed down, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean, it just-
complete, like pancake flattened. And that was incredible to see. And that's there at the Jim Gatchell Memorial Museum in downtown.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that was just incredible. And they had thousands of, I think 15,000 different artifacts, I think I read somewhere.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting story. So Gatchell was a pharmacist who in early 1900 and opened his pharmacy here in Buffalo. He'd grown up on a Lakota reservation, so he could speak the language. And so the Native Americans saw him as someone they could talk to and respect, and he would also help communicate with them, with the white settlers who were living in Buffalo at that time. So you're talking, 1900. The city's only been around for 15, 20 years. And the Indians would trade with Gatchell and give him gifts. And so that's how he started to compile a collection. And the settlers also started giving him gifts as well. So that's how he built his large array of items that he had. And so when he passed away, the family donated those items to create the museum in the 1950s.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And fun fact too, the museum is in an old Carnegie library, which I thought was spectacular. So there's just a lot of really cool history in downtown.
Talk about the walking tour too. The
Oh,
Tourism Bureau puts out a pamphlet that
Actually, it was the museum. The museum put it together.
Sorry.
So they have like a walking tour, and it's just self-guided. You take one of their little brochures that you can get there in their gift shop. But it's a walking tour of the historic homes, walking tour of the historic streets, of historic downtown, and national historic sites, which was really, really interesting.
Yeah, so much to do. A lot of great restaurants and different buildings. And there's the shop. If you're a big Longmire fan, there's a shop down that you can buy. That you bought this for me this morning. I got to thank Toby because I said, I'd really like to wear a Longmire shirt for this podcast, and I didn't have time to go get it because I was sitting up all this podcast.
And I'm sporting my beautiful shirt from here at the KOA.
From the KOA, the Bighorn Mountains. But are we ready for number one?
Yes, we are. You got to hit the button.
Excuse us.
250 strands of lights. Drum roll, please.
And the number one thing to do in Buffalo or in Johnson County, Wyoming is
visit the historic Occidental Hotel and Saloon. This place is incredible. So we went there for dinner last night at the Saloon. Food was delicious. We've gone through the lobby. We're going to do a tour. You can do tours either at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And all you do is just give them a call and just say, hey, I'd like to do a tour. And get in there and go and do a tour, and they'll show you some of the rooms and give you some of the history. But this is like frozen in time, which is so cool. And there's a lot of history around the Occidental because it was like the hotel in the area. So wasn't it like folks from the Bozeman Trail would come here into town and get some reprieve and relief and head back out again? And so tell us some more about the Occidental.
Well, it dates back to 1879, so it's actually before the city would even been a city. It was after the fort had been established on the west part of town. And Calamity Jane, Butch Cassidy, all those outlaws came through there and spent time in the saloon. Butch Cassidy signed the register several times.
That's cool.
He'd come up to the area for horse races. And then you had Teddy Roosevelt stayed in there, and before he was president, Herbert Hoover stayed there after he was president. So you've got a place where a lot of historic figures stayed. Owen Wister was in there, and he wrote the book The Virginian. That's kind of the first big literary novel about the West and living in the West, and from his time here in Johnson County. So it was a hotel where the city name was picked out from a hat. There's a poker table in there where the property changed hands in a game of poker one time. So it's got the bullet holes and a lot of history in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so cool to see. And so it's made up of the hotel. You've got the saloon, which is fun because we were there Tuesday night last night, which is open mic night. So, whether you're a local or not a local, you can come in and sing. And there was a guy that, was that like a Viking song or something that he was
that's what it sounded like. It was like a poem reading song.
Yeah, I was trying to figure. But so you can. It's literally open mic, which is great. Thursday night is karaoke and
bluegrass night.
Bluegrass. I'm sorry.
So they actually sit in a circle. You've got a lot of musicians up there with guitars, banjos, bass, piano, and they kind of take turns playing different songs. Not all bluegrass, leans into country mostly, but. It's very popular. That brings a lot of people out to see that.
And the bar had really good food.
Oh, the food was delicious.
We haven't even talked about the restaurant in there, but the bar had really good food and a lot of live entertainment.
And then the Virginian is the restaurant, and then you've got the Busy Bee Cafe, which is all part of that. And that all makes up like and the locals call it the Ox, but that's like what do you call it? Like
the Occidental Complex.
The complex. Thank you. I wanted to say strip, and I'm like, that's not right.
And then at the end, they have Lolly Sugar Shack, which is in they're part of that whole.
Oh, okay.
So independently owned, but connected with all of that too. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And cinnamon rolls.
Oh, and the cinnamon rolls, right?
Cinnamon rolls.
We're going to have to get cinnamon rolls.
Well, that's
somewhere.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're really excited to visit the Occidental. Like I said, we've been in there twice, but we haven't really taken the tour and all that. We're excited to take the tour. But yeah, so as far as getting around, you're going to have a car here. This is spread out. We're not. There's no public transportation. And maybe you can hire somebody that's a horse or something.
Yeah.
Well, here's a perspective. It's only it's a little over a mile from our campground to walk into town.
Yeah.
So 20 minutes, and you can walk the Clear Creek Trail, actually, just after you cross the highway. And so, I mean, depending on where you stay, I mean, there is some walkability to it, depending on what you're, and biking. We have a lot of people that bike off the campground now, and will bike into downtown too. So, I mean, there are it's not for everyone, but for
Yeah.
those who are willing and able, the Clear Creek path is absolutely beautiful. You can walk and ride your bike on it, and it's lit. It's well groomed and maintained here in town, and it's a beautiful way to kind of meander in and out of downtown for an evening.
That's a good point. And I'm sorry, I meant the Johnson County as a whole. You want to drive everywhere, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, here in Buffalo,
we've
you
taken
could-
our e-bikes down there, or I've taken my e-bikes down there a couple of times. So Anita's absolutely correct. Very, very walkable here in Buffalo. But some of these other things that we've talked on the top 10, you definitely have to get in your car and drive.
There's a few miles between things.
There is.
I mean,
Again, this is the
huge.
definition of wide open space.
Do you know the total square miles in Johnson County? Any idea?
No, but
A lot.
bigger than Rhode Island, but not quite as big as Connecticut. Very close to as big as
Just Johnson
Just
County
the
alone.
county.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
That's a whole lot of mileage.
So that puts it in perspective. Now
Yeah.
let's talk about camping
Camping
options. We talked
options.
about Kaycee. Why don't we start off with you? I mean, we're here at the KO. This is an
Yes.
absolutely beautiful resort.
This is gorgeous.
We're sitting on a concrete pad right now. We've got a nice
We've got one of the
Weber grill.
Oh, yeah, I know. We've got the is it the Solo? Is that what those are called?
Solo
the Solo
stove.
fire pits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're called
Those.
Solo
We have
stove.
Adirondack chairs. We've got the nice table and chairs here that we're on. We're backed up to a creek. Beautiful views, green grass, lush trees.
Maybe tell us a little bit. I know you briefly said it earlier. Maybe tell us a little bit about the history of buying the campground and what you've done here.
Okay. So Paul and I moved here in 2020, COVID year. And so we closed our park September 1st. And so this is our 4th full year of owning it. And so we've been blessed to be here. When we came, the section that we're in, that you guys are in right now, was just was basically a marshy kind of area, and there's just a walking path cut through. And so we saw right away just the value of developing this and giving people something spectacular to stay while they're here in Buffalo. And so with the creek surrounding it on 3 sides, I mean, the water, the sound, the peacefulness when you cross the bridge into this new section. Still new to us. We still feel like it's new. It's just incredible. I mean, it's just otherworldly. And so you've only got 22 sites back here, lots of space, lots of yard space, and it's just an incredible way to relax after exploring around Johnson County and Buffalo.
And
Now-
it is. It's
Now, is this kind of the premium section back here, or does some of the other sites in there have the concrete pads and all that?
We do. So there are concrete pads over in the other side, and we're continually developing. So we put in we're putting in a couple of sites along the French Creek now, and so they'll be pull-throughs rather than back ends. We also have patio sites that will have dog enclosures, and so they can have their pets outside, and they'll be safe and don't have to be on a leash. We have 2 really grand patio sites also where they're completely privacy fenced. And so you can really have your private, you can just kind of truly get away and kind of feel like none of the campground has
really
visibility into what you're doing. And
Oh,
so
that's neat.
Yeah. And so we also have cabins, and we have tent sites right along Clear Creek, which are incredible. So our tenters absolutely love being able to camp on the banks of Clear Creek there. And so there's just lots of different ways to stay with us, and so different price points. And so and we have people that they overnight with us. So we have just under 50% of them where they're just passing through and then tell us, "Oh, I wish we'd stayed here longer."
right. Yeah.
And then we have those that they've discovered us, right, and they're here for 2 or 3 days, and we have right around 10 people that spend almost all of their summer here with us.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah,
Oh, very
so-
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can see why. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. Your front store, I'm always impressed by a good front store. And your front store is so impressive.
Yeah, lots of cool stuff. for
Yeah,
sure.
just a lot of great T-shirts, apparel, camping supplies, snacks, games, blankets. I mean, and beautiful stuff that it looks like it's brought in from local people that are making the products. Is that right?
We strive to as much as we can local. We do have quite a few local people in there. At least try to keep a lot of things in the States.
Yeah.
And so I can tell you, I can walk through my store and I can tell you who makes it, where they live, what their story is, because that's a passion for me,
Yeah.
just to getting to know those curators and being privileged to bring their merchandise into our store and offer it to our guests.
That's fabulous. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So-
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a beautiful KOA. And with the KOA, you or at least for us, we know exactly what we're going to get
Yes.
when we say the KOA. And that
It's
brand
comforting.
that brand consistency
Yeah.
is very comforting.
It's
Yeah,
very
so-
comforting. It's like, when we're traveling into a new area, it's like, oh, it's a KOA. Okay, we know it's going to be good. Yeah.
Right. And I know
Yeah.
they've got the different levels, the journey and all. This is a journey, correct?
It's a journey.
We are a journey, so.
Okay.
And they've got the holiday and then the resort.
Okay, and then we've got a couple other campgrounds in the area.
Because we
gotta
stayed at the other one down the street.
We stayed at Indian campground, and that was Nathan's the manager down there, right? We didn't get to meet him. He actually had to go out of town, so we never met him. But
the few days that
so
we were
thank
there.
you to them. We'll give them a plug, and that was a wonderful place too. They got a real nice pool.
So they have like a section that has like heavy tree cover, which is beautiful. But like for us, because we have Starlink. They also have a back section that was wide open, surrounded in trees, but no trees that covered it, so we could use our Starlink.
Right,
and
then
that
we
was super nice.
Also have Janine at the Bighorn RV Park.
Bighorn View RV Park, right?
View, yeah. We're going to actually be meeting with her later and seeing the park and all that. But a lot of good. And you said there's 6.
And there's Deer Park. Is in town as well.
Okay.
Deer Park's right off I-90. Good shading area up on a hill, just outside of the main part of the hotel strip here. The Bighorn View RV Park's about 7 miles to the east of Buffalo on I-90. Just opened up this summer, I think June or so. So they're getting up and running. They're going to do year-round as well.
Oh, nice.
And they very, very much cater to people traveling with horses. They have stables out there and the corrals and an arena. So
that's super
if you're
nice.
traveling with with horses, you can stop there. And then the Lake Stop RV Park is up along Lake DeSmet. So there's another one up there north of town, right on the lake. So it gives you easy access to the recreation there.
Well, and here in Buffalo, I know we got 16, which we already spoke about, went over to Yellowstone in that area and vice versa. But Buffalo is kind of centrally located in Johnson County, right? And so it makes a great place to stay, for those 3-4 days that we're, been proposing for people to be able to scout out northwest, east, south.
Right. You can go any direction and find something recreation to do or find some history to research and explore. So and right along the interstates, so easy access most ways.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, even just what you can do locally, I mean, when you think about it, it's about an hour and a half to Devil's Tower. It's about an hour and a half to the Battle of Little Bighorn, right? I mean, so there's a lot here you can do and make this your base camp and just kind of go out and explore and be able to really get into a region for a day and, come back home and relax around the campfire.
Yeah, because we took a little trip out to Ten Sleep, which was just outside of Johnson County, but that was on the beautiful 16 byway. Went all the way out there, had a really good hamburger. Okay, so I got to say this, folks. When you come out here, eat bison and eat hamburger because this is
beef country.
It is beef country, and it is so much better than the beef that we get out east. Okay, our beef is not so good.
They're injected with weird stuff.
I know, but every day I'm like, I think I'm having another steak for dinner. Yep, I'm gonna have steak for dinner.
I've literally had a hamburger every
night,
single meal,
and I've had steak
except
every
for
meal.
the day I had the bison ribeye, the TA Ranch. But
because the beef here is amazing, it's so good.
Well, one thing I also want to mention about the KOA specifically is you're beautifully located right between 25 and 90.
Yeah.
So whether you're coming north on 25 or I guess it'd be west on 90, you're right in the
here.
middle of them, and so that makes it real convenient. So
yeah.
Well, have we missed anything? Do you feel like we've given ample evidence of why people should come to this area and stay in this area?
I think you've hit a lot of the highlights. It's a beautiful place. And we have a website that we launched this year with more information. Visit buffalowy.com. So we have all the hiking trails will be listed on there. Any type of fishing, horseback riding, all the outdoor opportunities are there, as well as the restaurants, the places to stay. We're going to be building out more stuff and more stories and blogs, and then also retail sections so people know what they can shop at when they're here as well.
We're really proud of that because you can link out of our website to all the local opportunities, right, and go to their landing pages and operate off of that. So that's a really cool enhancement that we enjoy this year for sure. So anybody who wants to know about Buffalo can really launch out of there and plan and see all the great things that they can do while they're here.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll put that website down in the notes section for those that might be driving and not able to write that down. And we'll also put the KOAs and some of these other campgrounds we spoke about just so you have quotes. But well, you want to wind things up?
Yeah, let's wind things up because the sky is changing on us.
Yes, it is.
So thank you both, Anita and Toby, for joining us today and sharing with us and talking about all the wonderful, amazing things to do here in Johnson County and Buffalo and Kaycee. And again, this is just scratching the surface. You could literally spend months here and never get tired of all there is to see and do. So thank you both so much for being here. And we want to thank everybody out there for listening to us today. today and watching on YouTube. Be sure to get out there, rate, review, and subscribe to the RV Destinations podcast on whatever platform you find your podcast on, and get out to YouTube and make sure you hit that subscribe button down below so that you are notified when new podcasts come out so you can see our happy, shiny, smiley faces. So I'm Caly Beheimer, Editor-in-Chief of RV Destinations Magazine, here with that guy, Randy Beheimer, President of RV Destinations Magazine. You like my little Western accent right there?
It's cute,
isn't
changing.
It is. And again, joined by Anita and Toby, and we want to thank you all for joining us today.
Be safe.
Safe travels, y'all.